I'm Kat Pastor. Welcome to our Election Day Citizens Observer Show, featuring Connecticut voters, including the world's greatest juggler, a poet, a farmer, a sculptor, a restaurant owner, and a troubadour. What the hell was a troubadour? No? And now, the announcer on the Kat Pastor Show, Colin McEnroe. Colin?
Wait a minute. Has the name of the show been changed? I wasn't informed about that. But I think it might be a good move, actually, if we just change this to the Kat Pastor Show, and I'll just be the announcer on it. So welcome to our Citizen Observer Show. We've been doing this for a really long time. As I said before the news, even before I came to the station, we were doing it elsewhere. And in fact, one of our Citizen Observers today, Laura Herskovich, who is the dean of all Citizen Observers, used to be, even back when I was on this other station that shall not be named, she started with me there. So, and what we do is we ask people to tell us, we set it up in advance, although we will give some of you an opportunity to call in spontaneously if we have time, but we ask them to vote and then just tell us what it felt like, what your emotions were, what you saw, what the scene was like. We don't ask you who you voted for. We don't ask you who you think is going to win. We don't ask you anything like that. We just ask them ultimately, what the feeling was like, how it felt to be a human being on this day. So a couple of things I need to tell you. First of all, if you haven't voted yet, please do go vote. I think the lines are going to die down. They have died down. The worst thing you could have done, it turns out, anecdotally, is try to get there before everybody else, because people who showed up at 5:50 a.m. thinking that they would be the first people to vote when the polls opened at 6 found themselves in long lines. That sort of 6 to 7 hour just had 1 hour waits in a lot of places. A lot of people had the same idea, and then it kind of died down a little bit. And then, of course, people who are on normal schedules go to work and stuff like that. So, so please do go vote in your town. You also have until 8 p.m., but not 8 p.m. in 1 second, just 8 p.m. to put your absentee ballot into a drop box, probably at the town hall of your town. So you can do that too. We should also say that there's an Election Day hotline. You can call in if you had any problems. It's a really, really stupid hotline number. But so you'll... I'm sorry, but it really is a stupid hotline number. So the hotline number supposedly is, ready, 866-SEEK-INFO. Now, there's two problems with this. One of them is that if you say that on the radio, which they apparently never thought anybody would do, it sounds like it's Seek, S-E-E-K, Seek. It's not. It's SEEC for the State Elections Enforcement Commission. And Seek Info is 8 digits and phone numbers are 7 digits. So I think it's really Seek Inf, and then you can dial the remaining O, but your phone won't really notice that you did that. So it's a bad number, or a bad acronym, or whatever you would call that. It's alphanumerically impaired is what it is. And it will not be the hotline number in the next cycle if I have anything to say about it. But right now, yes, if none of that made any sense to you, the Election Day hotline is 866-733-2463. So if you saw something and you want to say something, or something happened to you, there you go. That's what you can do. Or you can report voting irregularities to elections@ct.gov. See, that at least, it's not weird and confusing. All right, so sorry to begin on that note. So anyway, I think I've explained enough to you. We are going to be talking to people who have voted. Some people will have voted, already in advance, as did I. This is the last year I ever want to do that. I always vote in person. I am a person who usually votes early in the morning. And I don't enjoy voting by absentee ballot. I want to be there, but for obvious reasons this year, it just didn't make sense. But some people have voted in advance. Some people have already voted today. Some people might even still be in line, and that may be the case for our first citizen observer coming back to us after 4 years ago. George Newjames is the author of Newjames Bistro in Winstead. He voted in Torrington, where he lives, and we are talking to him now. Although, George, have you made it there yet, or are you in line? What's going on right now?
I already voted.
Oh, good.
Walked in. It was smooth voting process.
So I remember talking to you 4 years ago, George, and on that day, you, I think, were feeling pretty emotional about what was happening in America. Some of this has to do with having come here from a different country, as I recall. So just tell me, what's your emotional state today? How does Election Day feel to you?
It feels the same way. I love voting. I love to vote in person too. So I, like you said yourself, I enjoy voting in person. And when I stepped out of my car, I felt like it was the most important moment of my life right now. I've been waiting for this for 1,384 days to vote.
But who's counting?
I am.
Yes. Yes. So, keep talking. Yeah.
Yeah, it was still emotional. My kids are coming from college to vote. They're coming to Torrington to vote. And I can't wait till we unite together, come with them to the precinct, and they'll vote. It's an amazing day. I encourage everybody to step out and vote.
Now, the difference between today and when I talked to you 4 years ago is that we're going through another set of traumas having to do with the pandemic, and you're in one of the industries that has been the most assailed by this, that has been the most truncated at times by the pandemic. So I don't know, how does that affect your feelings and thinking on a day when you're voting?
It's a challenging time for our industry. We adapt, we do our best, we serve the people, and we want it to end. We want this pandemic to end. We want to go back to normal, and it's not a normal time right now on many levels.
So, you probably know about the musical Hamilton, and there's this kind of famous moment where Hamilton and Lafayette are kind of shaking hands, and they say together, "Immigrants, we get the job done." And there's something about that, I think, in being an immigrant and voting, too, I would assume.
Yes. We don't take anything for granted. We appreciate every opportunity. I've never voted in my homeland, Lebanon, and this becomes my home, and voting is so important to us.
All right. Well, listen, I hope you're around and willing to talk to us 4 years from now. Who knows what will be happening next, but we're going to go right now, and I can hear bells ringing and things happening, and who knows what that means. So we're going to switch gears here, and we're going to go from Torrington to Bridgeport, metaphorically. Joining us now, I believe, is Alicia Cobb, a visual artist and art instructor in Bridgeport. She voted in Bridgeport today, which is always exciting. And if you are one of the smart people who are watching Where Art Thou, the great new TV series hosted by Ray Hardman, you had a chance to see Alicia and her body art. So Alicia Cobb, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So first of all, just tell me about voting. Did you do it in person today, or did you do it in advance? What happened?
Oh, I went in person. I got up early this morning, and I was one of those people who figured if I got there early, I would be able to get it done and over with. And that is not what happened. I got there, and there was a really long line. And so what I did was I left, and I came back a couple hours later. So I did actually vote in person today.
And so how did you feel? How did you feel it as a person, or as a body standing in line, or however you want to think about this? What was going through your mind?
Well, when I arrived the first time, I actually got really emotional. It was so touching to see so many people online to vote, because when I went for primaries, which is very different, I literally walked in and out of the building with no problem. Mm-hmm. And I was really surprised that there was no line for primaries. So it was emotional to see so many people in line, prepared to vote and, fulfill their civic duty. So I was very emotional. And then when I went back and I stood in line myself, I was there for just under 2 hours, to get in and cast my ballot and go. It was emotional for me. It was very emotional. I am somebody who, I'm biracial. My father's African American, and so for me, it's really important to be there physically because my ancestors fought, for the right as a woman and as a woman of color. My ancestors fought for me to have that right, and so it's really important for me to be there physically. That was really important to me.
I think that's a great place for us to leave it. But Alicia Cobb, you are a great addition to our army of citizen observers, visual artist and art instructor in Bridgeport.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today. That's just great. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely hope to get her back. So one of the guys who's been with us a long time, and I'm also excited about it. Michael Motion is really one of the world's leading jugglers and performance artists. He is a recipient of a MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant. So he is a genius, which means that anything he says is probably true. And smarter than like what I would be saying. I don't have any genius grant. Anyway, he votes in Cornwall. He's been with us several times before. So Michael, great to have you back.
Colin, thanks for having me, and I'm going to stop laughing about what you're saying about geniuses and everything. Anyway, go ahead.
Look, let me tell you something, Michael. If I had a genius grant, I would never let anyone forget it. Like if anybody ever contradicted me about anything, I would say, oh, really? How many genius grants do you have, jerkface?
Yeah. Well, no, the funny thing is that when you sort of grow up and realize you think a little bit differently about some things, you sort of say, is that going to work or is that going to not work? And, sometimes it works.
Right. So you vote in Cornwall, which is in the beautiful, beautiful Western Connecticut countryside. I feel like 4 years ago you hiked over a hill and hiked down it or something to get to the voting place. So I want to know what you did today.
Well, today was kind of a quiet and I don't want to say somber, but very simple time of going out and putting my dog in the car, Jasper, and then going to the local school, Cornwall Consolidated School, which is a beautiful wooden split-level school, and they have a newish gymnasium, so we set up in there. What was interesting is I was had been all hepped up, like a lot of people, about all the sort of chaos and energy and everything around this whole voting thing, and the fact that it is so important. And my experience was very austere and almost sort of turned into another direction of sort of fantasy, because when you walk into the school, the sidewalk has paw prints painted on the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. And so I immediately started going, oh, look at that, beasts that are going in to the various entrances in the school. They were painted blue and gold, and they were oval, the paw prints, the actual pads. Mm. And then when I got in the voting booth, I realized that the voting where I had to fill in with a pen was the same shape, oval. So I started thinking of ovals and things like that. And because my work involves physics and geometry and all sorts of things, I started going into shapes and everything. But my experience going in and voting was very simple and very professional and clean. And there wasn't a lot of emotion other than the only thing I did was I was thinking about all the people that can't vote because they have died from the virus. Right. And that sort of pervaded my sensibilities. And then right afterwards, I took my dog Jasper down to the Housatonic Meadows Park for a walk, and something interestingly unusual happened, which is this big field we were walking in, and thousands of oak leaves had fallen from the trees and were strewn all over. We were walking through, and I happened to kick some leaves, and underneath one of the leaves was a rock that was kind of ovalish, not totally ovalish, but it could fit in your hand. And somebody somehow, somewhere, had painted the rock as the American flag. Wow. And what's interesting is that it gave me a sense of time because I think when it must have been painted by a child, and probably a Hispanic child, a lot of Hispanic families come up to the park in the summertime, and it was probably the 4th of July that some kid painted that rock, and then it got lost and never got taken back in the car and ended up in this field under these leaves. And I just sort of said, yeah, those are the two sacred days for citizens of this country, Independence Day and voting. And so it just sort of made a completion for me about the seriousness of what's going on and the sort of emotional connection that I felt with everybody in this time.
That is beautiful. That is a beautiful story and a beautiful connection that you made there. And I don't want to add a note of frivolity, but I keep thinking that The Rock is thinking, that's Michael Motion. I wonder, is he going to juggle me? Will he juggle me?
Well, I used to get rock fever down at the river when I was a kid, which is skittering rocks on top of the surface. So I was in that vein.
Be gentle with every rock. You never know what it's thinking. Michael Motion, one of the world's leading jugglers and performance artists, thank you very much for your report from Cornwall.
Thank you, Colin.
All right, so we now are going to go to a brand new citizen observer here. I guess maybe it's time that I let you know that, although I really kind of have to race through all these citizen observers, if you really feel like you've got a story that you have to tell, our number is 888-720-9677. It's not that other bad number that I gave out before. It's 888-720-WNPR. I can't promise you that we'll get you on the air, but we could conceivably try to get you on. That's a very weak kind of promise. All right, joining us now is Madi Csejka. I think I'm saying that right. A 23-year-old, our youngest citizen observer of this year, voting in Orange. That's a town, not a color. She may be wearing orange as well, for all I know. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Colin. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here, too. And did I screw up your name?
You did not. Great job.
Okay. No, I was heavily coached by Betsy Capital. So yeah, you're voting. You voted today, right? You didn't vote in advance?
Yes, I voted this morning. I woke up. I have the luxury of sleeping in with my job. And my dad had said that he went this morning and the line was wrapped around the building. So he didn't end up voting. So I jumped right out of bed within 5 minutes and drove to the polling place to cast my vote.
So just tell me, this is the kind of the question that I'm asking everybody every time I do this is, I don't know, what was going through your mind or what was going through your heart as you were doing this?
So this was my second presidential election, and I walked out of the first one feeling extremely confident in who I had elected. And I definitely went into this election with much more skepticism and a little bit more fear. And I'm much more apprehensive now. Maybe that comes with age as well. I was 19 when I voted in the last election. So I was a lot more cautious. I'm a lot more skeptical, but I am just as glad and ecstatic to have been able to cast my vote.
Yeah, and I think also, first of all, I don't think you can, when you're 23 years old, say that's something that comes with age. But I get what you're saying, too, which is that every time you do this, it's a less new experience. It's an experience that is layered, like wallpaper placed over wallpaper, that, it becomes the sum of all the previous experiences. And so 2016, that must have been such a weird election to be your first vote. I mean, it was just so not what it appeared to be.
Yeah, it was a really weird time to first be voting, especially because I was so young and I maybe didn't pay as much attention to the last election that I did this election, and just the overload of information that has come with this election, in addition to what's going on in the world, made this a very different experience.
All right. So, and we should just close by saying that you do know regular contributor to our show and very soon to be a radio superstar of some kind. You went to school with Sam Hadelman?
Yeah, I did go to school with Sam. We went to elementary school together. I always listen to him when he's on. So when I saw this post, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my turn.
Yeah. So speaking of your peers, not just Sam, but your peers, I mean, I don't know, how engaged have they been this time, or do they feel just kind of overwhelmed by all the portentousness of it?
It really does vary from person to person. So I have some friends who aren't super engaged or up to date with politics, but I have other friends who have done phone banking and who have helped on the campaigns. I've some friends who worked for both of the campaigns. I think this time around, though, I had a lot more friends who were involved than the previous election, because now that most of us have graduated from college and we're in the workforce, we feel like we have a lot more at stake.
All right. Well, Madi, you're great. I could sort of see, the Maddie and Sam show, Sam and Maddie show.
Soon.
You're good on the radio. Thanks very much for joining us, Madi Csejka.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got so much more to tell you, including pretty soon we'll have the Dean of all citizen observers, Lara Herskovich.
At the agenda before the slaves were free, before that man from Kenya, he took the presidency. When they say we want our America back, our America back, our America back.
All right, I'm back. And first of all, if you're listening live here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Election Day, I should tell you, you just heard a promo for the special tonight from 6 to 7, both on Connecticut Public Radio and on CPTV. I will be on that briefly. So, and I don't really like, I'm going to be on by Skype. Anyway, so one thing that I need to know, either you're going to tell me today on the air or you're going to email me at colin@wnpr.org. So if you voted in West Haven in the morning, there was a guy apparently voting who had a parrot on his shoulder. I need to know more about that. First of all, was it a service parrot? Did it say anything? I just feel like parrots, the minute you take them out in public, they just want to scream the F word. They're just going to do that. But I need to know more about the parrot voter in West Haven. So please brief me on that. I'd like to be able to mention it tonight on CPTV and Connecticut Public Radio. That'll be my big contribution. All right, so we're going to go back to our citizen observers. If you're just tuning in, this is something we do every election cycle. We ask people who are not politicians or political workers or journalists. We ask people, who do other kinds of jobs and who are citizens and who are voting, just what it was like today as you voted, or if you voted in advance, that's cool too. So joining us now, making his debut as a citizen observer, but a longtime friend of mine on Facebook, John DeLugos, works in information services at Trinity College, votes in Woodstock, where I think they all vote at Country Joe and Fish Middle School, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Votes in Woodstock, Connecticut. Welcome to our show, John.
Thanks, Colin. Great to be here.
So I'm going to just ask you my standard question. I know enough about you to know that this has been a troubling time for you, as it has been for a lot of people, and you feel like there's kind of some dark clouds in the sky. So, what were your feelings today as you voted?
Well, it was an easy process. I want to say that, and the poll workers in Woodstock did a great job. I was in and out in 15 minutes, which is what it usually is. I've had some health issues come up, and probably shouldn't have been out there at the polls in person. But this was my daughter's first general election, and I wanted to be there with her. She was graduated from high school, Woodstock Academy, in the spring, and but of course the end of her senior year. Week by week, all the wonderful things about being a senior and being a class leader and all of those things, each week things would drop away that weren't going to happen, a prom and even a regular graduation ceremony. So she got accepted to a great school in New York City, and then over the summer, week by week, all her classes went to remote, so it made no sense for her to go. So I went into this process of going to the polls with her for the first time with a lot of apprehension, really. It was kind of a rather cheerless thing. I mean, I want something to work out for her. I want her to have a victory, and I was a little concerned about that. But I wanted to be there for her first and foremost, and so we went out this morning at 7:30 and casted our ballots, and I gave her a hug and went into work.
All right. So let me just ask you one more thing, because, as you mentioned, you have some special circumstances there. And I haven't asked anybody else about this, but I have yet to hear from anybody who voted today where everybody wasn't masked. For you, that would be, I think, a little bit of an extra issue if people were not wearing face masks. How did that go?
Everybody on site was in a mask that I saw anyway, in line behind me, in front of me. In fact, folks seemed to be taking extra care about leaving that 6 foot extra distance as we went around the side of the middle school. And in the gymnasium itself, there were folks who were spraying down and wiping down the little kiosks where folks would fill out their ballots. So I was really impressed by that, and I really appreciated that, and tried to let the poll workers know quickly that, hey, I really appreciate that. I've worked at the polls in the past, and I know it can be a little bit stressful at times under normal circumstances. So those are real heroes today, the folks who are out there on the front lines putting themselves at risk, and I really appreciate what they all did.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make. Well, John DeLugos, great to have you on as Citizen Observer after all these years. Let's keep doing this, okay?
Thanks a lot.
All right. So we are going to try to squeeze at least 1 or 2 callers in here. Also, excitement is building because Lara Herskovich, who is the Dean of all Citizen Observers and is, Cad Pastor, a former state troubadour and a recording artist and stuff like that as well. She's going to be the next Citizen Observer. But I think, it's sort of like, you need the crowd. Like at the other Woodstock, you want the crowd to get kind of worked up here. So meanwhile, we're going to have another caller from Orange. We're very heavily covering Orange this cycle. Here's Siddhartha calling from Orange, Connecticut. Hi. Or maybe not. We might be going to Lara Herskovich sooner than we think. Siddhartha, can you hear me okay? Okay, that might be a phone problem. Okay, so let's flip back over. Now it is time to go to the Dean. Lara Herskovich is a singer, songwriter, poet, performer, advocate. Boy, this is like Carolyn Payne kind of long here. Lara Herskovich, singer, songwriter, poet, performer, advocate, former Connecticut State troubadour, and children's book author in the works. Her new album is Highway Philosophers. We're going to be ending the show today with her song Angels from that new album. She votes in Guilford, and as I say, she has been doing the Citizen Observer thing longer than anybody. She's by far the record holder. So, Lara Herskovich, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be with you, Colin.
So, tell me, I don't even have to ask you any questions. You could just sort of do this, while I sit here and drink water. But
as the dean, I hope I don't disappoint. I'll do my best.
No, you're at this point, you're grandfathered in. I need to find a less ageist way of saying it. But, you have tenure. That's what I mean. You have tenure. You can't lose your job.
This is a good day. A new title. I'm a dean and I have tenure. I'm enjoying this interview so far. All
right. So, just tell me what was going on. What was going on in Guilford, but more especially, I think, what was going on inside you?
Yeah, it's a moving day for me. As you know, Colin, I always feel emotional on Election Day, and even more so this year. So I can describe how I felt as I was driving there. I'm a songwriter first and foremost. So for me, I live in metaphor. So today, I thought today's about change, hopefully from my perspective. And so I took a new route. I'm normally a touring artist. I'm going to all kinds of towns and states and whatnot. And because of COVID, I'm kind of grounded like we all are. So I'm getting to know my local neighborhood. So I tried a new road, which is always thrilling. And today the road was the perfect metaphor, Great Hill Road. So I thought, all right, that's fair enough. A good description of this year that has been just incredible fires of painful transformation, but hopefully transformation to a better, healthier place. We'll see. Time will tell. Last time I voted, as you might remember, 4 years ago, I told you this. It was Hemlock Road, which was also sadly a perfect metaphor in lots of different ways. We had a huge windstorm yesterday. So navigating around all kinds of obstacles. Also, again, good metaphor. I've been listening to an audiobook on the Civil War, looking for some coping strategies. And so I listened to that as I was driving to the polls today. I was not expecting any kind of crowd. So this is a very rural part of an already smaller town in Connecticut. We have, I think, in the neighborhood of 16,000 registered voters. A quarter of them had already submitted their absentee ballots. So I just wasn't expecting many people. As I drive to vote, there's, cords and cords of stacked firewood and hay bales and open vistas and whatnot. I got to the lot, it was full, but only one human being standing in the parking lot with a sign, somebody who was campaigning for a state Democrat race. And I asked that person if they had had any, just interesting interactions with anyone today. And she told me there was no harassment, no really negative interactions, except for one person driving by gave her a thumbs down. Given the volume of the day, we agreed that was an excellent sign. And inside, it was as some others have described. There were only 4 people in line. The workers there told me it had been nonstop. We also in North Guilford experienced the same, apparently enormous line from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. all the way across both parking lots. I was excited to fill out my ballot, like, hooray, this day has come. I have never colored in a dot more densely in my entire life, just to make sure there were no equivalent of hanging Chad issues with my one vote. I handed it in, got my sticker, got back to my car, and I was surprised how emotional I felt. I've been really digging into meditation this year for obvious reasons. And one of the benefits of meditation is it helps us realize what we feel. And I was really moved. I believe in the promise of this country. I believe in us individually, collectively. And I'm hoping it leaves us in a healthier place. So time will tell.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is how you get to be the dean, by just like making speeches like that. That was really great. So I'm just worried that I think you could produce a hanging Chad if you color in too hard. So you need to kind of find the sweet spot. That,
I got to go back and find my ballot now, pull it out of the pile, and
you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Don't stress. All right, Lara Herskovich, thanks so much for visiting with us today. You'll hear one of Lara's songs right here at the end of the show today. You'll hear the song Angels. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Colin.
All right, we're going to shift gears here. We're sort of trying to figure out like how to get the people who are just calling in on the air. I think we might have figured it out now. I think we've got Mandy in Bristol, who I think also might be voting in a first presidential election. Mandy, are you there?
I am.
Yeah, yes. There you are. Yeah, yay. So tell me about this. How new an experience is this for you?
It's brand new. I actually voted for my first time in the primaries, but this is my first presidential election. And getting there this morning, I got there early, like most, thinking that it would be quiet and walk right in. I got there around 6:15, and let me tell you, it was an hour wait. But standing in line, was talking to different people, had Republicans behind, had Democrats behind me, Republicans in front of me, and it was really an amazing experience.
Clowns to the left of you, jokers to the right as well. So, yeah, I mean, when you say amazing experience, build on that a little bit. I mean, just amazing just because you felt fully participatory in your democracy, or was there something else going on?
I think like your last speaker said, it's changed. You've been waiting for 4 years, and honestly, I started listening to NPR in 2016 and getting more politically active since then. And honestly, I felt like it was like kind of a combination of the last 4 years, finally building up to being able to cast my vote, making my vote count, and basically making my voice count where we've been some of us have been silent for forever. So finally being able to step in, and I'll be honest, the poll place I went to, I actually found they had stickers, and I know that sounds trivial, but stickers for the 100th anniversary of the suffragette movement. And the poll worker was like, I was really interested in them, and the poll worker made sure I got every single one of them, which I think made it even more special because of what this year represents. They voted, they had to fight to vote, and you know what? It means so much to have that right to vote. And as I'm 35 now, so voting for the first time in a presidential election, I know, but it meant so much to me to be able to go out and do that and make a difference in this politically charged climate that we find ourselves in.
All right, Mandy, great call. Stickers, by the way, are never trivial. I always feel like getting the I voted sticker is important. But yes, the suffrage sticker is even more important, I think, the women's suffrage. In fact, I have to make a confession. Every time on the radio or something like that, somebody talks about, there's been a lot of male voting this year. I start for a second. I go, well, no, we all vote now. And then I realize, no, it's a homonym. All right, so Betsy Kaplan's getting mad at me. So we're going to go right now to Ben Freund, the owner and operator of Freund's Farm Incorporated, a dairy farm, and Cow Pots, biodegradable planting pots, both in East Canaan. Ben voted in East Canaan. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, you know the drill here now. I'm just going to ask you, just first of all, just describe the experience of voting today. East Canaan feels like a pretty small place. Did you have big lines, big crowds?
I had no line, no crowd because I voted absentee about a month ago.
Okay, so that would solve that problem. So yeah, maybe. So I did the same thing. I don't know how you feel about doing that. I mean, obviously it makes a lot of sense, but it's different from voting the regular way.
Not too bad for me. I mean, it just, you get your ballot. The request of the ballot and the timing was a little awkward because there's been so much talk about it for so many months. And when it actually came down to that, when they became available, just requested it, came in the mail, filled it out, put it back in. And, I'm kind of been doing this for, 45 years now. And it's a pretty easy process. And it wasn't, I think I've only ever voted absentee one other time. And I would have to say I didn't find it to be that emotional of an experience. It was just filling the dots in where I selected.
So I also imagine as a farmer, it's one of these jobs where you've kind of got to be there an awful lot of the time. Maybe voting absentee ballot or mail ballot or whatever we want to call it. Maybe for a farmer, then you at least sort of know what your schedule is. The cows know where you're going to be, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, they were very happy. I mean, when I came in this morning, they made sure that I had done my civic duty, and I told them I had. It's a mixed herd. There's red cows and there's blue cows, and they were all anxious to know how I actually did vote, but I figured I held that in my own confidence. I didn't think it was any of their business to know.
Right. No, don't tell the cows because obviously they spread things around. All right. Well, Ben Freund, great to hear your voice again. Thanks for doing this for us.
Okay. Good luck with the whatever. Hope your candidate wins, and mine too.
Yes. And maybe we have the same ones. You never know. So, because we don't ask people who they voted for. All right. We got to go to another break, our final break. We're going to come back. We have some terrific citizen observers coming out of this break.
Come on, God, you know the planet's in the pisser. We don't need some swindler, pussy grabber, and a kisser.
Okay, so we're just moments away from going to Susan Clenard. Hey, Susan, if you're listening and you're on Zoom, you should unmute your mic so we can go to you in just a second here. But before we do that, I have to thank Kat Pastor, who you finally heard the voice of. Well, yeah, you heard her during fundraising too, but you heard her on the intro today. But her main job on this show is just making the whole show work. She's there at the studio making it possible for me to work from home, and for Betsy Kaplan, senior producer and producer of this episode, also to work from home. And so tomorrow we're going to do we're going to do an election reaction show. Well, what else are we going to do? And I know that we have Michael Lynch, the philosopher. We're trying to get all of the people that we had on the day after the 2016 election. I don't know if we have Azar Nafisi yet, but we want to get all the people that we lined up a certain lineup right the day after the election. We're trying to do that again. And tonight, we have a special from 6 to 7. I will just be on for 3 minutes, but I'm sure it'll be a great special. Maybe because of that. And it's on CPTV and on these radio stations. All right. Hopefully she's unmuted at this point. Susan Clenard is the owner of Clenard Sculpture, a studio in Hamden. She votes in New Haven. And she is, I can say this because I've seen her work in person, but also you can look at it online pretty well. She is just an amazing and very powerful sculptor. And it's fun to have her in this context. Susan, are you there?
I am. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine. So, you did this 4 years ago, and you had some really interesting things to say. I'm always interested in the sculptor's eye, too. Now, I don't know, did you vote in person?
I did, yes.
All right. So I'm always interested in the sculptor's eye, and particularly knowing your sculptures and the way that they work with human figures and stuff. I don't know. What did you see around you today as you voted?
Well, I wish I had the story I had 4 years ago, but instead... When I went, I decided to skip the early crowd before work, and I went around 8:30, and it was just bada bing, bada boom. I was in, I was out. I was so pleased to see young people of color were all of the voting workers that were there. But I mean, they looked like they were about 16, 17 years old, and that felt good. They looked exhausted, and they said that just like crowd upon crowd of people in New Haven came out earlier, and they were kind of catching their breath for the next round. So it was hopeful, but I didn't get the people energy that I live for and speak for in my work. But the emotion and the nerves were on high, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that part of it. Yeah, it was like what's going on inside. So it's nerves rather than anything else.
Well, I think that just as a former social worker and artist now for 29 years, every single day I go into this very sacred space to create work that really speaks to our shared humanity, and finding these like just maybe bits of poetry and beauty that we can find and connect with. And for the last 4 years, I will turn on the radio, or I'll jump in my car to grab a coffee and hear yet another story that nearly brings me to my knees, because I feel like every day it has been a fight. And I know I can't swear on air, but if I could conjure up the energy right now to just weep, that's, not cry, but weep, because the weeping for me is just the amount of deep sadness that I have carried, and many of us have carried with us, I think, for the last 4 years. So that vote felt really good to place today, let me tell you.
Yes. Well, Not for Nothing is your most recent series called The Weight We Carry. I encourage people to see it either online or when that becomes a little bit easier to do in person. We've been talking to Susan Clinard, owner of Clinard Sculpture Studio in Hampton. She voted in New Haven. Thanks for doing this with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's a great show.
All right, we're going to move quickly here because Betsy Kaplan wants me to move quickly so we don't miss anybody. Joining us now, Sarah Koffold, a choral conductor and the founder and artistic director of, I hope I say this right, Consonare Choral Community. She voted in Stores. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Did I say the name of the choral community correctly or incorrectly?
You actually did.
Okay. Well, don't sound that surprised.
Well, most people don't, so it's good.
So tell me about voting today.
Well, I didn't go this morning because my husband said when he drove by there was a line down and around our polling place. So I had to wait till after I taught this morning. But my daughter came with me and we went in. There wasn't too much of a line. It was not too bad. And I made sure that each little circle was really well darkened. But as I'm standing up, the person in front of me was having trouble with her Scantron going in through the ballot box. And I got this like stroke of fear, like, oh no, is it full? Can it not accept? And they pulled hers out. And it looks like she voted for 2 presidential candidates, which is why it was rejected. So I breathed my sigh of relief and was able to submit and walk out. And I feel so much lighter. Now that that's done, because I was up really late last night finishing our last video for our Ballads for Ballots.
We have to say something about that too. Tell the people about ballads for ballots.
Yeah, you have to really kind of get the diction right so it makes sense, right? We had this idea since, as a performing group, all of our performances have been basically canceled. And so we wanted to find a way to still connect with the community. And so I thought, what if we create songs that are empowering, inspiring, especially for women, to encourage them to go out and vote, because it is 2020. We were supposed to do a lot of performances last spring and this year related to the ratification of the 19th Amendment and marking that. So as a women's choir, we put together some songs. And we collaborated with the women from our professional ensemble and created a song each Tuesday. And many of them were recorded outside with masks or virtually at home remotely, which is difficult for singers to do. Believe it or not, it's really hard when you're used to singing in groups. And so we did it each Tuesday. We pumped out a new song for 8 weeks prior to the election. And last night was me putting together our last one, which is What Happens When a Woman. It's a song by Artisma, and it asks a lot of important questions that women perhaps should ask to empower themselves. Like, what happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she stands on her own 2 feet? What happens when she rules her own body?
Hey, so we have to do this in about 60 seconds because I got to make sure I get to Kate Russian here at the end. But, and I don't mean to violate your HIPAA privacy, but I think you told us about this. You had COVID, right? Which has,
Yes.
it was earlier in the year. And for a singer, there's a sort of an irony here. Singing can be one of the ways that COVID can spread, but also for a singer, COVID is quite a burden. So just, 30 or 40 seconds, kind of give us a sense of that.
Well, I got it while my son was in the hospital and picked it up while I was visiting him, with my mask on. So you can get it when you wear a mask too. I do still have a little trouble breathing, which is very difficult for being a singer. But I think it has informed a lot of how I treat and interact with the singers I work with, because I know how bad it is and I don't want them to have this at all. So I think it has really given me a way to take care of them best and not put them in situations that make them feel uncomfortable or that are unsafe. And to be honest, you can sing quite well outside with a mask on. And we have a couple videos coming up in a couple weeks that show that.
All right, Sarah Kaufhold, I have to stop you there just because we're almost
You
out
bet.
of time today, and I want Kate Russian, the wonderful poet who's been on our show in so many other ways, to get the last words here today. Kate Russian is a poet, writer, and educator. She voted in East Hampton. She voted, I believe, this morning. Kate Russian, so great to have you back on the show. Okay, so I have to find Kate now. Hey, Kate Russian, can you hear me? Okay, so while we're trying to figure that out, one of the things that I would have probably mentioned to Sarah when she was talking about the person who colored in the two circles is, I was told today that in Vernon, somebody spilled coffee on his ballot, or his or her, I think it was a he, and then tried to put the ballot in the wet coffee-soaked ballot into the scanning machine and jammed it. So yeah, people. So let me just make one more attempt to see if we can find Kate. Kate Russian, are you there?
I am here.
There you are. Oh, good. Okay, so we got to go fast here, but I want to hear what's going on inside you after. First of all, what was it like to vote? What were you thinking and feeling?
Well, I have to admit that I was a bit apprehensive driving to the poll. I knew I would be fine once I got in, but I did not know. I feared that I might have to pass people in big trucks brandishing weapons. And that did not happen. And when I saw the folks, I said, oh, citizens and neighbors. And I totally relaxed. And I made sure that I waved at both the Dems and the Repubs.
And I don't know, how were you thinking and feeling beyond that, though, as you voted, after you voted? I don't know, was it a load off your mind to have gotten the vote done?
You know, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did not do absentee, which I had considered. But to tell you the truth, I was really made apprehensive by all the images that we've been seeing. And once I saw it was just people, I was fine and it was fun. And I met a poll worker who'd been there since 5:30 a.m. and she was keeping a tally. And she told me that by 10 a.m. they had processed 2,900 ballots or gotten 2,900 absentee ballots. And I was 2,517.
All right, person. Kate, it's so great to talk to you. Sorry, we had a little stumble there getting to you. I lost a little valuable time with Kate Russian, poet, writer, and educator, the person I really wanted to have the last word here today. She voted in East Hampton. Thanks to everybody who helped out today. Let's end also with Lara Herskovich singing Angels.
Calling everybody's angels, angels, angels.